light regulation, little regulation, actually no regulation. And that's what's brought us to where we are today. In fact, in the last week or so, Cowan and the Fianna Fáil party have been unmasked over the Golfgate affair as a result of protecting the interests of their own golden circle of cronies, bankers, speculators, and obscene salaries, and they are still on obscene salaries. They've brought this country to its knees, and they are making the people on low and middle incomes pay for that economic crisis. How? By having wage cuts, mass unemployment, cutting our public services, and worsening conditions.
Excuse me, can you ask a question, please? Yeah, it is.
After the whitewash that we've cleared, where we haven't been allowed to ask ongoing questions, I have about 24 questions here to ask.
No, excuse me. Actually, there was a gentleman behind you who had his hand up from the very, very beginning. I want to go around. If you please ask one question, because a lot of people want to ask questions, in fairness. Thank you.
Just picking up on what Alan said, you were talking about indigenous industries such as Medtronic. Well, we do know, don't we, that Medtronic already is going into China, into Mexico, taking jobs away from Galway. You do know, don't you, that if you cut jobs, it means those people haven't got any money to spend. And we are in the situation of having 500,000 people unemployed, and you've talked constantly about the construction sector, which is only 25,000. Bit of a difference in numbers there, I think. You talked about the oil being used.
Excuse me, please ask a question, because I got it. You've got a chance here to ask a question.
We have huge resources.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead. There hasn't been a question asked. I'm going to go back to that gentleman there.
So I want to ask.
Otherwise,
call yourself a facilitator.
Why didn't you ask the question? Why you not there? You have said nothing about people that have got no jobs, students that are being forced on graduate jobs.
okay, I'm going to call this meeting to an end unless the lady asks a question immediately. You know, that's what it is.
Say about all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank,
the question's been raised by co-economists, it's not just myself. So I'm just wondering how you see 3% happening while 10 billion is being taken out.
Frank Fahey I the question took him Dutch buyer the gallant of French go to Burhish and handed the much of the Jewish shop the funds just to work with them. Tussle the Irish and Braha is cheaper from the Crimea from the Jewish shop. Are you going to be suffering? Are you going to be suffering with all your apartments and houses about this? I don't think so. And the other thing there as well is that Mr. Gallant as well. It's great to hear you all cracked up whatever about the economy. But what about those deals you did with Shell? As Minister for what was that all about? I mean, we have to buy the gas back from them on market prices. What the hell, like? That's like
particularly, the main work that I do as a TD is addressing the questions that you mentioned, particularly the delivery of services to Galway, health services, education, the development of industry, infrastructure and so on. And you mentioned health and education, for instance. I have been involved in a very significant way over the years in the development of our hospitals. Massive investment has gone in to improve services. There is still much work to be done in that respect. In regard to education, we probably have now the finest two institutions in Europe in NUIG and in GMIT. There is very significant investment right now going into those two colleges. 4 different buildings being built at the moment in NUIG at a cost of about 100 million investment by the taxpayer.
And the two
in regard to the issues of people that are less well off, I can tell you, come to my clinic every day and you will see the amount of work that we do for people who have difficulty, be it with social welfare, or with employment, or with housing. That is what we spend vast majority of our time doing. And I'm quite happy to continue to do that work, to serve people in the way that I have done. And it's for that reason that I'm now contesting my 10th election. And I've been elected each time except for one occasion. So my record is there. The people have their opportunity to vote on my record, and I'm quite happy to accept the outcome. In regard to the issue of the property that you mentioned, well, I have made my returns to the Standards in Public Office every year since the very outset. And yes, I've built up a property portfolio, but what is not reflected in the returns that I make is the fact that there are an extended family members involved in all of the properties which I'm involved, and also a number of other partners. And I make no apology to anybody for building up a property portfolio over the years. What is also not reflected in the returns that I make is that there's very substantial borrowing on all of those properties. And just like everybody else who has loans with the banks at the present time, yes, it is very difficult right now because of the drop in value in property and indeed the difficulties in regard to making repayments. So I have been absolutely careful to ensure that over the years that I have made my ethical returns in a very transparent and open way. And I'm quite satisfied that I have nothing to worry about in that respect.
Are fed up with politicians and politics of all sides. And we're in the state we're in because politics has failed us. Now, my question to Frank, and he didn't mention it during his recovery over the 4 years, my view is, and I think a lot of people's view is, that we can do certain things in our own country that we still have control over. And one of those is political reform in the Dáil. How many days do we sit? The committees that we had, and one of them that you've chaired for the last years, was toothless. It didn't have the ability to enforce and compel people that didn't want to come in or didn't want to answer questions. How are we going to have our elections in the future? Are we going to have a new constitution for the needs of the people? These are the issues that politicians should be addressing, instead of getting involved in things that they have no business getting addressing. And the first thing is to clean up the House by addressing the things that you can in the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay,
Frank Fahey, a member of Free Education for Everyone. Frank, your time in government as elected TD of the Fianna Fáil party in recent years has seen an increase of €1,000 in the registration fee for students across Ireland. This is along with 33% youth unemployment and a 10% cut in the grants on top of 5% that came before. And along with the whole economic answer of Fianna Fáil at helm, it has seen the reintroduction into our society of an economic brain drain, which young people face the prospect of unemployment and immigration. Why, Mr. Fahey, can you not admit that you have failed the citizens of this country by your support of Fianna Fáil and apologise and resign accordingly? How can you not see continued support of the parliamentary party that's a detriment of your constituents and the citizens of Ireland?
Thanks, Joe. Guys, really, I'm not looking for statements, I'm looking for questions. This is not the forum for that, quite frankly.
We've got an upmarket. It's okay to be a girl here if you're rich.